I don't agree with the statement that money cannot buy happiness, because it absolutely can. If I'm very, very sick, I'm ill, let's say I'm actually terminally ill, I'm about to die soon of cancer, and I want to see my best friend, and I haven't seen my best friend for a year or 2 years, and I haven't been able to travel because of my disease. Quite like, and because my friend is very, very poor, and I'm very, very poor, and we're both broke, we can't see each other. So we can't spend those final moments together. Well, if I were rich, I could actually have paid for my friend to show up at my house or at my hospital room, sitting next to me, bedside, as I'm taking my final breaths. Obviously, this is very, very dark, and hopefully that's not happening to anybody here, but that's just an idea, or that's just a thought to give you an idea that money can absolutely buy you happiness, because I will be much happier if my friend is beside me, holding my hand, even. No homo, no pun intended. As I'm taking my dying breaths. Really, I will be much happier. I will be much more content. And life will feel so much better. And speaking of health, speaking of taking care of yourself, if I'm rich, I have access to better doctors, to better equipment, to more expensive medicine. I actually read this heartbreaking story about some older woman who was given advice by her doctor that she needed to eat healthy, because if she didn't start eating healthier, she would probably die. I don't exactly recall her illness, whatever it was, but it doesn't really matter. The point is simple. She didn't have the money to afford to buy the healthy food, because the healthy food was way more expensive than the ultra processed cheap foods. You know, hot dogs, cookies, crisps, chips. I was about to say chisps. Chips, soups, all that kind of crap. It's ultra processed. Cereals, well, not all cereals, but most cereals are ultra processed. And so, if she had had money, if she had had more money, she could afford to buy the food and the medicine that would help her become better. I actually read another heartbreaking story in this regard about how some guy who suffered from ALS, the horrible disease where your entire body basically gets paralyzed. And towards the end, before you die, I think you can communicate exclusively via your pupils, your eyes. Nothing really works. And so there was this promising medicine that would supposedly go a long way in preventing the disease from developing, and potentially might even, make it revert, which is good news. Now, in this case, I don't know exactly what it's called, but the Commission for Medicine, the Norwegian Commission for Medicine, refused to allow him to even pay out of his own pocket to use the medicine, because they couldn't verify that it was good enough, which is horseshit, because it had been proven elsewhere in the world. Anyway, I'm gonna leave the politics aside, but the point is, since this guy actually had the financial means to purchase the medicine, there was a theoretical chance that he could battle his disease. And I bet ya, with respect to cancer and so on, if you can afford better treatment, then quite likely your chances of surviving cancer increase, and so on and so forth. And that just goes to prove you that money can indeed buy happiness, because if you get to live, and if you become healthy, if you get healthy, if you stay healthy, then by and large you will be happier. So yes, money can indeed buy happiness. And financial stability, being able to afford to pay your bills. Anybody who's been financially compressed and can't afford to pay their bills and spend the night worrying about the next bills and how much money that's left to buy food, yeah, that's not very cool. That certainly doesn't make you happy. So money can buy you happiness, and a lack of money will make that you're not happy. I guarantee you that. Now, I don't know why I took this long introduction, but basically there is an example of something that could be argued to be the inverse. Some guy in Pennsylvania in the United States, a farmer, considered to or was on the verge of retiring. I don't know that he had any children or any heirs who wanted to continue running the farm. And the farm had been in the family for 3 or 4 generations, ever since probably his predecessors from Europe first stepped foot on Pennsylvanian soil. And it was a large, beautiful farm, lots and lots of acres, lots and lots of farmland, lots and lots of opportunities, really. Well, guess what? Some corporation wanted to purchase the whole area and turn it into a data center, probably for artificial intelligence or some such. Now, the guy didn't want that because even though, and listen, this corporation supposedly, allegedly offered him $15 million. Think about that. $15 million to be able to purchase, or for the rights to purchase the farmland and for acquiring development rights and all the hullabaloo. But the guy didn't want the 50 millions because he couldn't live with himself knowing that the farmland would be turned into an artificial intelligence data center. So here's what he did instead. He actually rejected the offer, and then he sold his farm. He sold his farmland and all the developmental rights, whatever you call them, to some sort of heritage foundation that worked on preserving cultural landscapes. I think they also worked on promoting local history and so on. Basically all the good stuff. And what ended up happening was he sold his farm, or he sold the farmland to this organization, and thus ensuring that the landscape would be preserved for all conceivable future the way it was today. And I think they even wanted to, keep the farm as was, but probably restore it to some degree, and maybe turn it into some sort of a local tourist attraction. I already know. The point is, for that alone, he got a measly $2 million. Now, just a couple of context and nuance here. The guy was 84 years old. So it's not like he's going to blow money through the roof and spend money on, a lavish lifestyle keeping up with the Joneses. He ain't gonna buy a Lambo. He's probably too old to even be driving a Lambo. I don't mean to take a dig at the guy, but just imagine, right? If you're 84 and you have maybe 10 years left, maybe 15, I mean, who knows, maybe 20, who knows, but you're at the tail end of your life. You ain't gonna care about that much money. Because assuming he's got everything, all of his debts are paid down, he doesn't have any large bills, he doesn't have any, big expenses to take care of, then $2 million is probably enough. $2 million, a paid off house or paid off apartment, that's it, right? And it just goes to show you that money really can't buy everything. Yes, it can buy happiness, but it can't buy everything. And that's really the end goal of this video, just to show you that money can buy a lot, but it can't buy everything, because emotion is more important than money. And this is a great example of showing you how emotions rule everything, even money. And so, with that in mind, if you want to learn more about emotions and money and so on, and persuasion in business, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you are watching or listening to this, and I'll see you there.